All right, your MOTOMULE just arrived. Let's get it unboxed and show you how to assemble it. Open here. Inside your box, you're going to have your wheel chock, your handlebar tie down, the handle which will mount to the ramp that is already installed inside of the tray, and the tongue box. We're going to start with the tongue box first. It's got all the hardware and we'll get you started on assembly. I like to recommend installing and assembling within the hitch. It gives you a good platform, it keeps it elevated, it keeps it stable. So let's get right to it. To assemble everything, two 14mm wrenches or a single 14mm and a ratchet socket with a 14mm on the end is recommended. It's not included. We do include two Allen wrenches that'll help with assembly. You're going to take your lock set out and then remove the tongue and the perpendicular pieces that go on and start there. Solid piece of 2-inch is the backbone to the MOTOMULE system. It's incredibly strong, super durable. It is hefty, but you're gonna love it. I'm gonna take the two perpendicular pieces out and unpackage the hardware. All right, one of the things that PackMule is most known for is our patented anti-wobble connection. You can see when you put anything in the hitch, it moves around a bunch. We're gonna go ahead and install that anti-wobble system. Threaded pin is always going to go in from the passenger side, and the lock with the orange indicator is going to go on the driver's side. Once you've aligned the hole, hand thread it, pop the lock on, make sure the orange indicator's protruding, pull on the lock just to be sure. I'm going to leave the key in this case. You're going to need a 7/8 ratchet socket, which you may have already ordered when you ordered your MOTOMULE. It would be in its own package. If not, you probably have a ratchet socket around. Grab that 7/8 inch. That deep socket is best because it's going to come over your chainstays and give you a little extra clearance. And just snug it up a little bit. You're not going off-roading right now or doing anything, but you just want to take the wobble out. Look at how good that is, huh? Okay, leave the key in place because we're not driving off. Orientation of the two perpendicular pieces. You're going to have the slope facing down like this, and you're going to take your 3-inch hardware out of the package, and it installs just like this. Put it in place, line up the hole, and get it threaded in. Take the second piece, do the same thing. You want to tighten each of these so that the bolt comes out of the other side of the nylock nut, just enough so you see at least one thread. Okay, this is the tray. The ramp's installed inside of it. It's got a set screw, but you will need to remove the ramp at some point and install the handle on it. There's two channels down here on the bottom of the tray. Those are going to be used to install some of your hardware. So we're going to take these 2-inch bolts. We're going to slide them in. This unit doesn't have a logo plate, but you'll line it up with the center screw hole on the logo plate. And then when you flip that over, they're going to install into these two holes in the main tongue. When you put the tray in place, most people want to load the bike with the clutch to the outside and the front wheel on the driver's side of the vehicle. If that is you, then the wheel loop is going to go on the driver's side. You can tell which side is the wheel loop side because the logo plate will read correctly, and the screws for the wheel loop will be on the driver's side of the vehicle. Okay, now we need the short bolts that are in the same package that the 2-inch were in. These are 7/8 inches long, and those are going to hold the brackets, which are in your tongue box, to secure the tray to these perpendicular bars on the bottom. Set one here. Same kind of deal. These are going to slide into the channel on the bottom. And you can bring them right about to where that bolt hole is here. You'll see that the bracket is going to line up with that bolt hole. And then you have 2 more 3-inch bolts. You're gonna go ahead and put your 3-inch inside. It's gonna come through the bracket. Now everything's held in place, and you can come back, you can go ahead and do the other one. You don't wanna tighten any of this because there's some alignment stuff we're gonna talk about. So let's get this other bracket on. Again, we're gonna install these in the channel, slide them up to that hole, take your bracket, slide it into place, take your last 3-inch bolt and slide it through that hole. Now everything's in place. Each of these gets a washer and a nut. Again, we're just gonna finger tighten everything at this point. And do the same on the other side. Okay, now that this bracket's threaded in place, we want to install the handlebar tie down. So we're going to remove that 3-inch bolt now that the bracket's in place. And then based on the bike type, will depend on how far in or out you're going to want this. There's 3 mounting holes, so depending on which type of bike you're riding will determine which hole you want to mount it in. You want to have just a little bit of a forward pull from the handlebars up, from the tie down point to the forks or the handlebars. We're gonna pick the middle hole here for good measure. Once you've got those holes lined up, you can put this 3-inch bolt back in place. You can see these extrusion channels. Okay, so you wanna make sure that these extrusion channels are lined up with this 2x2 on both sides. And so this is lined up, looks good. We're gonna go ahead and tighten all the bolts. Remember, you want to have 1 thread exposed outside of the nylock nut. That'll let you know that everything is fully engaged, that the nylock nut is doing what it needs to do to keep it from vibrating off. While you're using the MOTOMULE, especially after the first use, you just want to go back through, tighten everything up one more time, make sure everything looks good, that nothing's adjusted or settled. And then occasionally, like with anything, any type of trailer, hitch accessory, or automotive part, you want to frequently check everything and make sure it's all snug, secure, and ready to go. Okay, now that all these outside bolts are installed, you want to go ahead. Remember in the very beginning, we had 2 bolts that were coming through these mounting channels. Right now they don't have nuts on the bottom. We're going to go ahead and do that. On the bottom, you're going to notice that we're counterbored from the tray forward. That way, if you're off-road somewhere and you end up dragging, you're not just rubbing the ends of these bolts off. It gives you a nice smooth finish. The one closest to the vehicle is protruding down. Gives us some extra metal there and some extra strength. In all of our testing, we decided it was better to have that protruding, and it was close enough, you're probably not going to drag it, and add some extra strength. So we're going to go ahead and thread that nut on. No washers are needed in this. And then get your socket in there. Okay, at this point the tray is fully mounted to the substructure, and you're ready to install the wheel chock and the rear handle. Okay, now we're going to install the wheel chock. You want to loosen the Allen bolts with the included Allen wrench. They're threaded into our mounting bar. You can take all 6 of those out, lay them down in the tray. Okay, we want to take the wheel chock. We want to take the wheel chock out of the box. Discard the box. Get the tape off your leg. Showbiz. Okay, start with the front, and you're just going to hand thread these in at first so you can get it all lined up. There might be a little flex, so you can compress it some if you need to, especially on these last 2 bolts. Okay, once you've threaded the screws all in, you can now adjust it. It's on a track and channel, so if you've got a smaller bike, you can move it closer to the center. Typically on a large bike, you're going to put the end of the flat bar just at the end of the channel there. But don't go over the plastic end caps. You want to keep it inside of the end caps. Once you've got a position where you want it, you're just going to tighten all the bolts down. You have 2 final things to do. The handle for the ramp, and then installing the eye bolts. The handle's got all the screws in place. They might come unthreaded during the process. You're going to remove the set screw. You're going to slide the ramp out just a little bit. buttery smooth. And then you're gonna prep this hardware. MOTOMULE has a bunch of different hardware. So for the wheel loop, you know, we've got the screws threaded into the mounting bar, so you have to track those down and try to originate them. The same thing with the handle. We went ahead and put the screws in place. It takes a little extra work because you got to remove it, but it's a lot easier than identifying which bolt or screw goes where. Just trying to simplify the process. We ship this independent, not installed, because we're concerned that it would get damaged during shipping. And so we figured you'd prefer to have an undamaged product versus just having to install 6 extra screws here. So you're gonna line up these screw holes. You're gonna put all the screws in place and then come back on and thread these lock nuts in place. At this point, you can take a pair of channel locks or a pair of pliers just to hold these nuts in place. You're gonna take your Allen wrench and go ahead and thread this in place and tighten it. The orientation of the handle before you tighten all this up, the latch is gonna be on the latch side of the ramp. There's a small slope on the bottom of the handle that is designed so when you've got it extended out, that section sits on the ground, the slope goes up. You'll notice that there's a plastic wedge on the ramp itself. There's also a plastic wedge just underneath the tray. When you slide that in and you latch it in place, that helps lock it in place so it's not chattering while you're driving down the road. There's also 2 wedges at the front of the ramp to do the same thing. So you get a nice smooth slide into the tray, but you also take out all the chatter and rattle that would otherwise exist if we didn't have these wedges in place. Okay, slide it in, latch it in place. And we're gonna get the eye bolts in, it'll be good. Okay, then you're gonna take your 2 eye bolts. You'll notice that they are 2 different lengths. One of them is slightly longer than the other. The longer one is gonna go on the vehicle side. The shorter one is gonna go to the outside, and they're going to install in this orientation. 2 nuts. This one's gonna be counterboard. Thread the nut in. Take your ratchet, socket. When you go to tighten and torque this down, this may want to twist on you a little bit. You can take a screwdriver or something else to hold it in place while you tighten it down, keep it from twisting. Okay, once you get those tightened down, again, the eye bolt closest to the vehicle will stick down below the tongue. Everything else should be flush on the bottom, so you've got a nice smooth tongue in case, again, if you drag or something, you don't damage those bolts. Now you're going to unpackage your straps with the shackles and get those installed in place. You're going to orient it with the buckle to the outside, and you're going to put the shackle over it. Slide this in place, thread this guy in, and then if you put the shackle so that as you torque it, it's pressing against the bar, you can take a pair of pliers and then do the same for the back side as well. The buckle will be facing the car in this case. Roll it against the tongue so that as you tighten it, it's pressing against the tongue, and you'll take the pliers and go ahead and tighten it down the rest of the way. The last 2 straps just clip onto the handlebar tie down and you're ready to load a bike and go. Of course, the first time that you put something together, it's a little slower than your repetitive times. We don't expect you'll have to install it or assemble it more than 1 time, but thank you for your patience in putting this together. It does require a little bit of assembly, but it allows us to ship at UPS. And we've been very intentional in the way that we've packaged everything, the assembly pieces and components and how they go together to make it as easy as possible for you. We hope that you found it not too troublesome and that it went together pretty easy, and that maybe you enjoyed a cold beer along the way. You're ready to hit the road. If you have any questions, make sure you email us, info@packmule.com, or give us a call here at the office. Or if you're watching this on YouTube or on one of our social media platforms, be sure to give us a comment, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the trail.